We want to thank you all for being here. It means a lot.
It's an impossible task to try to celebrate the life of someone that was this big, but we're going to try. And I think it's really important to get us in the right mood and to start us on the right note. I want to invite Father Brian Mills to open us in prayer.
It's hard for a preacher to say a prayer without a sermon. But I do want to tell you a story. 5 or 6 years ago, Kip met with me, and we talked about a problem that we were having at St. John's Episcopal Church. We didn't have enough money to put a new roof on that old building. And so he said, let me work on it. And we've laughed about this for years because he did the impossible, and it was kept a secret. For he wrote a grant for a church, and we received a substantial amount of money from the state of Arizona through the lottery fund. Only he could have accomplished that. And I told him, don't feel bad. I never liked separation of church and state anyway. Once the project was completely done, the church board was so appreciative of the work that he had done for us that they said, let's have a dinner and let's honor Kip. So I went to him and I said, I need you to find a Saturday evening that you aren't doing anything. First mistake. Second mistake was I said, the church wants to honor you. Huge mistake. It was then that I learned, and I hope you all have come to also know, we saw him that big. He never saw himself that big. Ever. I found him to be one of the most humble mans I'd ever came across. The only way I got him to come to that dinner was I said, listen, Kip, you need to understand something. Yes, we want to honor you, but it's just as much for these folks here who came up with the rest of that money to do this project. It was all of us together. And so we are going to honor you. We're going to talk about you, but it's for them as well. I like to think that the only way we got Kip here today to have to listen to everything that's getting ready to be said is we told Kip it's for them. It's for all of them that will come today. They need to be here and to do this. And he humbly said, well, okay. And with that, let us pray. O God of grace and glory, we remember before you this day our brother Kip. We thank you for giving him to us, his family, his community, his friends, to know and to love as a companion on our earthly pilgrimage. In your boundless compassion, console all who mourn. Give us faith to see that in death the gate of eternal life, so that in quiet confidence we may continue in our course on this earth until by your call we are reunited with those who have gone before. And now, into your hands, O merciful Savior, we commend your servant Kip, a knowledge we be humbly beseech you, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, a sinner of your own redeeming. Receive him now into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the glorious company of all the saints in light. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, we pray these things. Amen.
Thank you. My name is Heather. I'm one of Kip's 20 cousins. There's a lot of us here today. Kip McLaren Culver was the son of Theodore Richard Culver and Barbara Joan Sullivan. Teddy was a local Miami boy, born and raised. Joanne was a Globe girl, born at home on 811 Highland Drive. These two dynamic individuals came together. They shared the same birthday. It was 9 years apart, but they were 9 years apart, but they were dynamic individuals. And when they came together, we got a person that we like to refer to as Kipper. They worked at the Miami Inspiration Mines. The mines were on strike at the time of Kip's birth. And my uncle, Teddy, was in Farmington working. My Aunt Jo woke up on the morning of March 6th and thought she had a sharp pain. And her first thought was for her daughters, her girls, Sean and Leora. So she called my Aunt Claudia to take them to school. And then she drove herself to Miami Inspiration Hospital. By the time my Aunt Claudia got there, Kip McLaren Culver had arrived. I know, it's impressive on both sides. He came in, he was a force of nature right from the start. He got the sweet spot in the family. He was the baby on both sides. He was the baby on the Culver side, and he was the baby on the Sullivan side. And we loved and adored this child. He was, I don't know if there's a baby picture up here, but he really was the cutest and most beautiful baby I ever saw. And I would tell him this on a regular basis in his older years. And every time I said, "You were the cutest baby," he'd say, "What do you mean, were?" So you are the cutest baby. You just are. He flourished under all this care and attention. He had both grandmothers, his sisters, his mother, all of her sisters, his cousins. My dad made the joke that if there was a peep that came out of his bassinet or crib, there were 5 heads that hit over it, so we could just grab him and be there. And he was exceptional from the start. He did everything early. He was walking at 8 months. He said his first word at 9 months. By 14 months, we had complete sentences with good sentence structure. And by 2, he was reading books. He was 2, and he could read. He wasn't parroting the words. He read them. Leora and I tested him. So there were early signs of genius there. By the time he was 10, he was making his own movies. He wrote them, he directed them, he produced them, he cast them, he used his family. He had his sisters, his mother, his dad, his nieces, his nephews. He had all of them in it, and they all did it. And I'm hoping someday that you'll get to see some of those. He did this on the side while he was making straight A's. It was effortless for him. And if there are some of his friends from Miami High School, fellow vandals, there they are. Would you like to come up and speak a little bit about Kip's school years? Okay, they're gonna do it. Okay, this is good.
Most would agree that Kip was the heart of most every group or endeavor that he was part of. And he most certainly was the center of this group of girls. I'm Mandy. To my right is Rhonda, Debbie, Heidi, Lisa, Susan, and Stacy. Some coined us as the studious group, but eventually we became known as Kip's Harem, stemming from a Halloween party where he dressed as a sheik and we dressed as his harem. Kip's charisma, his infectious, clever, witty personality, his warmth, and knack for making you feel special were immense gifts, to which the 7 of us migrated without pause through the years of growing up in Globe, Miami. We all came to be this great group of friends, with Kip at the very center. We were partners in crime in all of our classes, as well as getting together on weekends for crazy fun board games, classic movie marathons, of course, cruising downtown Globe. We often looked to Kip to lead us, tell us what was next on the agenda. Kip even had a way of making our homework assignments fun, such as orchestrating a creative response to our English assignments by directing movies, with all of us starring in excerpts of Antigone and Great Expectations in lieu of writing ordinary book reports. Kip, no doubt in preparation for his later adventures at the Art Center, always was our fearless director, assigning roles, writing scripts, picking our wardrobe, and making us laugh endlessly. We were having a ball, and an experience that otherwise would have been much more ordinary without him.
Kip had a very playful and very mischievous side. I think we all probably know that. None of us were spared. Whenever we were together, you had to be on your toes for what might be coming next, and you had to remember to choose your words very, very wisely, very carefully, as they would definitely be used against you, and he would never, ever forget them. What little prank or mischief was Kip going to pull, and whose turn was it? Who was going to get it next? Oftentimes, we're already accusing Kip of doing something. We just knew that he was up to mischief, especially when you flash that trademark grin and that laugh. To him, I think seeing us squirm was as fun as the actual prank. How many times have we heard, "That's what the June bride said"? I'm going to try to do this because he would tell me to put my big girl panties on and just do it. And he's not going to get me today. The last time this group of us was together on this stage, it would have been the farewell assembly with him in the center, directing us to be right here. We sang, played out skits, and acted silly as usual. A true entertainer at heart, Kip was completely willing to be dressed in a pink tutu and borrowed cowboy boots. So thank you. I think that was David Pierce's boots that day. All to entertain ourselves, of course, our teachers, parents, and fellow classmates. Sorry. Those were wonderful times, and thankfully the fun didn't stop once we graduated from high school. A bond had been formed, and our friendship would continue, celebrating great times together through college, spring breaks, trips to Disneyland, even though he hated that place. We made him go. New Year's Eve parties, birthday parties. I was 2 days older than Kip, and he never, ever let me forget that. I was always older, would always be older. Class reunions, weddings, regardless of the occasion, even a simple lunch or movie was memorable. bean bro enchilada, and armpit iced tea. I'll tell that story if you want to hear it later. Thanks.
We were so fortunate to go through one of the most tumultuous periods of our lives together, the passage from adolescence to adulthood. Our experiences were silly, exciting, fun, and yes, sometimes embarrassing. Kip was a wonderful, supportive person and friend, the glue that kept this group of girls together, seeing us through to the other end of this time in our lives, successfully, sanely, and prepared to take on the world, each of us in our own way. As with all special friendships, it's difficult to remember how it all started. It just sort of happened, and you can't recall a time when you weren't friends. It's like you've been friends forever. We are blessed to have Kip as our beloved friend, to have forged the memories we have with him, and to have witnessed the many great things that he did in his life. We will always remember Kip as our center, the heart of the harem, and our friendship will continue to love and celebrate him now and always. Thank you.
That was beautiful. And if he pranked you, it meant he loved you. Show of hands, who got pranked by Kip? Yep, yep. After he graduated from high school, he went on to Arizona State University, the Walter Cronkite School of Broadcast and Journalism, where he graduated summa cum laude, because that was easy for him. He then came to Los Angeles and lived with me. I can't even get into it. He was a great roommate, full of pranks, full of fun, and he was absorbing everything that was there. The atmosphere, the beauty, the landscape, the architecture. He had a love and affinity for anything that was beautiful, and his spirit and his creativity was fed during this time. He was an intern for Leonard Maltin at Entertainment Tonight. Yeah, that Leonard Maltin. That was where he started, and then he ended up at a film company called Chanticleer Films, where he proofread scripts, tried to find financing for the ones he thought worthy. He was writing scripts. He was immersed in Hollywood, but always his heart was back in Globe. It was hard for him to be away for very long, and he didn't really mesh with the Hollywood lifestyle. As much as he loved the old days, the movies, and getting things done, he didn't really feel at home there. So he came back. He did a stint at the Shakespearean Conservatory, where it was his time to hone some of those crafts that he had as far as a performer. And then he brought his love for the performing arts to the Cobre Valley Center for the Arts. I would tell you that I think I have a pretty good imagination. I remember him walking me through the courthouse and saying, and this could be the theater. This is the courtroom now, and I thought, I don't see it. It looked pretty bad. But he saw it. He was visionary. He dreamed what it could be, and then he got it done. He just did it. Okay, that's another good one. That's his Aunt Marge, the other conehead. So here to tell us a little bit more about his days at the Cobre Valley Center for the Arts and what he loved dearly is Paul Tunis.
Hello, everyone. It was an absolute honor to be asked to represent the Cobre Valley Center for the Arts and its relationships to Kip, but there's really no words to express the impact that he had at the center. The Cobre Valley Center for the Arts was in existence for the past 30 years, the nonprofit was formed in 1984, and Kip became the center director in 2003. In that short amount of time, from when he became the center director until his passing, the impact that he made is incalculable. I don't even know if there's any way that I could go through all of the projects, the improvements, the renovations, the painting, the polishing, the replica wainscoting, all of the things that he was so passionate about and that were so small and invisible to so many people, but they were not invisible to Kip. It was a perfect fit for him to be the director of the center because it was a house for all the things that he loved most. The arts, all aspects of the arts. He was a visual artist himself. Some of you may know, some of you may not even have known that part of his life. Theater arts, obviously, as a playwright, as an actor, as a director, as a producer. But he also had a passion for our history and keeping that and being a steward of that and letting it flourish instead of just replacing it or throwing something out. He really wanted to see the grandeur of what we still had. He wanted to hold on to all of those things. Kip, he did a lot of work by himself, but what is perhaps most inspiring about the work that he did at the Cobre Valley Center for the Arts is how he inspired other people to work with him. He himself put thousands upon thousands of hours into the center, but the volunteer hours that he was able to get out of others, hundreds of thousands, I have no idea. It's incalculable, and they all did it because Kip was a visionary. It can be really hard when you lose someone like Kip, because you're not only losing a friend and a family member, but because Kip was a visionary and he was an idealist, you feel the loss of what he was making. The ideas that he had, when he's gone, you feel like you're not going to get to see Kip's version of the future, and you're not going to get to live in the community that Kip saw that we could have. And it can be devastating to imagine all of the things that he started in motion and all of the things that every time that you talk to Kip, he had this new idea about, well, we could put this thing over here, and if we move that over there, then we can add this, and then if we put that over here, and then we build this other thing that it kind of does this, but it does that too, and if you turn it, then, and it just went on and on and on. There was always new things, and there were always brilliant, beautiful ideas. So we can feel like we're mourning Kip's potential. And Kip's life at the center and his life in our community was all about potential. He saw the potential in our community. And because he believed in us so much, we came to believe in him. And he made us feel like anything was possible, whether it's putting a new roof on a church or having a running depot. All of these impossible things, he made you feel like they were possible. But sometimes we let Kip do those things for us because we did believe in him and he was able to do the impossible things. And sometimes, as a community, we have a self-esteem problem that we think that we're not good enough or that we don't deserve this or whatever's wrong with this town that everybody tells us is wrong with it. Kip never saw any of those things. So we used to not be ready to take our part in Kip's vision and stand up and finish his work. But I hope that recognize that we haven't lost Kip's version of the future. We haven't lost the ideas that he set forward. We haven't lost the idealism and the potential that we had that he saw in us. We haven't lost it at all. It's all still here. It's in this room. Every single one of you had a conversation with Kip where you went away feeling like things are going to be better tomorrow. And we all have a responsibility now to take that gift that Kip gave us, these seeds that he planted in every single one of us after every one of these conversations that we had, even if it was something silly. Of course, there was lots of silly things. I mean, I picked pictures that didn't have Kip in it because I knew that he was going to show up behind me making a silly face and make me feel dumb. Even if it was something silly, he gave you a gift that you were worth something, that you had something to contribute, that you were part of what he saw, this future that he saw. And so now it's all of our responsibility to be more Kippy. And it doesn't have to be anything big. We can't all renovate buildings. We should. But we can't all do that. Even if it's just making something a little bit nicer. Cleaning off a little piece of graffiti or picking up some trash. This morning I was at the center setting up tables, and I was walking and I was thinking about what I was going to say today because nothing that I thought of seemed like any good. But I saw a little King Cobra cap bottle, and I was like, I should pick that up. And I probably would have picked it up anyway, but I picked it up and I'm like, you're not going to be there on Kip's Day. This is Kip's Day, and you're not going to be here right now, King Cobra cap bottle. And I know you've seen some things, King Cobra cap bottle. You probably had a pretty good night last night. But it's my duty to pick you up. And it's all of our duty to honor Kip every day by just making things a little bit better. Even if it's something small, like picking up some trash, but because Kip saw our potential. A way to live more like Kip is something that has been weighing on my mind as we look forward. I know that there's going to be a lot of parts of Kip's life that are falling to me and to other members of the community. And the one thing that I'm going to try to do is when somebody comes to me with an idea that I think is great, I'm not immediately going to say that it's too hard. It's going to take a lot of money, it's going to take a lot of work, there's no other way that we can do that. I'm going to listen to the idea. And I'm going to try to point them, like Kip would, to someone else that shares their idea. He was able to sort people and direct people. He knew what needed to happen to make a project possible, and he just put those people together. And that was sometimes all it took. But so often we just think like, that's a lot of work. I don't really want to do that. My Sundays are already pretty full. My Saturday's full. So if somebody brings an idea to you, just point them somewhere. Just let them know that, someone else, I know someone who could. Where's Paul Buck? He knows about gardening. He'd be perfect for this. Because that's what Kip would have done. 1 million renovations to the center to make it kind of the crown jewel of Kip's vision. The Cobre Valley Center for the Arts is kind of where Kip started his mission of making downtown what he knew downtown could be. And the last full, complete project was the elevator. And he ran into 10 years worth of problems with that elevator. And he never stopped. It was impossible to think that one man would just run into the wall over and over again. But now we have an elevator. Frank Ballum, the day after Kip passed, I ran into him, and he put it very well that it's almost too perfect that the last gift Kip gave us was this elevator, because an elevator lifts you up. And that's exactly what he did. but we can lift ourselves up because Kip gave us that opportunity. So thank you for having me. It was an honor to speak on behalf of the Center for the Arts, and thanks.
While I was listening to Paul, I remembered I used to tease him. I said, you know, you really ought to get an Oscar for being Best Director. And he was all puffy. I said, of other people's lives. And he was. That's what he did. He was a Renaissance man. Kip was many things, and he also and always had a fascination with trains. Part of it might have been in his DNA. His great-grandfather, George Sanks, shoveled the first, broke ground on the depot where it stands today. His grandfather, Thomas Benjamin Sullivan, was the engineer that ran the train back and forth. And for as long as I can remember, he loved that era when the trains were in their heyday, probably in the 40s. He loved that music. He loved the way people dressed. He loved the films. He loved everything about the 40s, and especially the music. And so I'd like to take a moment and help me welcome Marie Gregg, who's going to share something that was very, very, very special to Kip.
Gonna take a sentimental journey, gonna set my heart at ease, gonna make a sentimental journey to renew old memories. Got my back, I got my reservation, spent each dime I could afford, like a child in wild anticipation. I long to hear that all aboard. 7, that's the time we leave at 7. I'll be waiting up for heaven, counting every mile of railroad track that takes me back. Never thought my heart could be so yearning. Why did I decide to roam? Gonna take the sentimental journey, sentimental journey home. My heart could be so yearning. Why did I decide to roam? Gonna take this sentimental journey, sentimental journey home, sentimental journey home, sentimental journey.
Wow. He loved it. He also really, really loved performing. It was one of the happiest places I think I ever saw him was on the stage. And so now, here to share some of those stories are some of his favorites from the Cobre Valley, I think I messed it up, the Copper City Community Players. Please help me welcome Willie Thomas, David Rogers, Rudy Amador, and Jason Marr.
Yeah, from the very first time that I run into Kip, when I met him, I realized that he was a person that had many, many fine qualities. But the quality that actually impacted me the most, it was the ability of him to get this creative vision.
A little bit, Willie.
Closer.
Thank you.
Man, I'm going to spit on it. So it was this creative vision that everybody's talked about. And he will come up to you and he says, hey, I got this idea for this and I want you to do it. And I says, Kip, come on. Are you sure? And pretty soon he'll keep talking to you, and then the passion that he had and the belief in this particular thing he was creating, it was kind of like it absorbs you, it just kind of sucks you right in, and then you pretty soon start feeling the passion that he had, and then you believe in it, how else can you explain that I would end up in Fry's buying groceries with a rabbit and a chicken, dressed as a carrot? He had me with the tights of black and yellow stripes and parading all over downtown, his convertible back and forth, but that was him. He had this ability to convince you, and he wasn't only just that. He also during Christmas, he wrote most of the Christmas plays. What are we going to do this? He says, wow, I got an idea. Let's do pixies. Kip, what's a pixie? I say, oh yeah, there's a pixie. So then what happens, before you know it, he's convinced you. You believe in on this thing, and then here comes Senor Calor from the South American country, coming over to, with flaming boots and a laser gun, and it's going to duel with Frigita from the North Pole that is going to save Christmas. Wow. And then those fundraisers that he came up with there. You remember those fundraisers? He was always trying to do something for the center because, he needed money for repairs. So he comes up with all of the different things. One of them was the jailhouse rock. Jailhouse rock. Oh, I got this idea. And so what? He convinced a bunch of us to go ahead and dress as jurors and judges and stuff and start judging people and mocking the judicial system, actually. But it was making money for the center, and there's a bunch of people, you recognize yourself there, And then there were the other things that he had. It was he said, oh yeah, people like to be scared, we have all the, he created all these events downtown in which he would dress you up like, can anybody recognize me from there? How can anybody be convinced to do stuff like that? And that was Kip. You see me dressed here, this is Kip. So anyway, it was his creative genius was just tremendous, and we did just about everything because we all here, we would play with him, and he sucked us into doing all these things, and we believed in it so hard, and we had fun with it. And we loved doing that because we loved Kip. And we loved his creative genius. And he was, I mean, we built stages also, that are sets up on this table. But what we did, we just put up some bare flats up there, and Kip will come along. You remember that, I mean?
I do remember that.
He comes along.
Kip would basically, he was our visionary whenever it came to set building. We would put up flats, whatever we needed, and say, okay, Kip, now it's up to you to decorate it. One of our plays that we did, which was one of the plays that Kip gave birth to, was Just a Cafe. We put up the walls and said, okay, Kip, go ahead and decorate it. And we'd come back in a couple days, and we had a wonderful set. One day we were working on the set, and we said, just in joking, it'd be really cool if we could get a jukebox. So we thought, okay, well, we get some cardboard and we could make a jukebox.
Should have kept their mouth shut.
I know it. So, we all went home, and, a couple of days later, Kip calls and says, guess what, guys? It's like, what? It's like, we got a jukebox. And I thought, okay, he got cardboard and paint. And so he says, I need you to meet me at Soda Pops in Miami on a Saturday. And I'm thinking, okay, whatever. So we all get to Soda Pops on Saturday morning, and there's a trailer in front of the store, and he says, okay, we got to load it on the trailer. I said, load what? He said, the jukebox. And sure enough, we acquired a jukebox for the production. And so we brought it over to the center, and it's like, okay, Kip, how are we going to get it up 3 flights of stairs?
There was no elevator.
With no elevator.
No.
So he says, not a problem, got it under control. I have a refrigerator dolly. It's like, okay, Kip, still, I understand the refrigerator dolly, but still, stairs. So after 51 steps
51
up
steps.
the fire escape of the center, whenever we would get to a landing, Willie and we would take a break and let's kind of look at each other and say, what was he thinking? And Kip was like, no, guys, we got, a couple more flights of stairs to go, we'll be fine.
Yeah, he was pulling, we were pushing. Yeah.
So got it up on stage, and it was one of the key pieces to the Just a Cafe set. And as a side note, after the production, we all got together, pitched in some money, and said, we're not taking it back down.
Yeah, he said, it's on loan, let's go return it. I said, no, we're buying it.
One of the other plays that we actually were really inspired by the set decoration was Moon Over Buffalo, which was a personal joy for myself because I was the director, so I got to direct Kip in it. He was my lead actor in that performance. And we needed the back of a New York theater. So it's like, okay, Kip, here's 5 doorways, because we needed 5 doorways that led to mayhem. So we have 5 doorways, we need you to decorate it. And he came up with one of the most unique designs for the backstage of a New York theater that you could think of. The Erlanger Theater was one of my favorite performances that we did. And then a couple years later, we moved on to Is He Dead? Which was, it took place in a flat in Paris. So it's like, okay, 4 walls, a couple of doors, Kip, do your thing. And within a couple of days, you would have actually thought that you were in a painter's flat in Paris. And of course, Kip, I think he enjoyed doing that particular play just because of everything that went into it. When Willie and I first started working on the set, we found some doors that we were going to use as part of the set. And
the jukebox story all over again.
I know. And so Willie and I put the doors in place and said, Kip, what do you think? He says, it looks really good, but the doors have to be changed. He says, I found these wonderful doors. They have the molding on them. They're perfect. I said, okay.
250 pounds a piece.
I said, well, where are they? He says, they're down in between the 2 buildings in the breezeway.
Still no elevator.
And still no elevator. So it's like, okay, so we have to do the 51 steps again? He said, yeah, it'll be fine. But that afternoon, he actually had beer, so it was good.
Yeah, he was good about that. He'll pay us.
So after lugging 50 plus pounds of door each up, we put them in place, and he says, see, doesn't that look so much better? And it's like, well, Kip, yeah, I have to hand it to you, it does look better. He says, now, the one thing I have to tell you is we have to switch out the doors in between Act 1 and Act 2. It's like, really, Kip? That's it? Just switch them out in between plays, and we're doing how many shows?
Nancy McKay loved that.
But it was definitely, it was a joy to know that we had his vision to decorate our stage. And now I'll turn it over to Rudy, who can actually talk a little bit about what it was like to perform with Kip on stage.
Yeah, I might have one or two thoughts on that. You know, I have to say, I did over 14 plays with Kip, and I learned something different from him on each and every one. First and foremost, I learned above all else, be 100% dedicated and be fearless when you get on stage and you do your part. And my first example of that with Kip would have been the play Once Upon a Mattress. In that play, we all had to don tights and a codpiece of different and varying shapes and sizes. Now, why they picked those shapes and sizes, who knows? But, as you can see, they were quite interesting. But Kip didn't bat an eye. He just got right into that costume, stretched into it, looked at me with a straight face and went, God, what did I do to deserve this? It didn't stop there, though. The next show we did was the infamous Moon Over Buffalo, which Dave just talked about. In that play, Kip had to memorize a 2-page monologue. It was a drunk scene. He came in, schnockered, and delivered this wonderful monologue. And I used to watch him every time during the rehearsals, and he would change it and tweak it a little bit every time. And I thought, my God, the man's a genius. He's brilliant. Watch him work. And one time after rehearsal, I went up to him and I said, Kip, what's going on in your head, man? You're a genius. You change it every time. And it's better each time you do it. And he looked at me and giggled and he said, well, I don't know if that's in the script, but that's the way it makes sense to me. And anybody that knows me, that's a philosophy I still live by to this day. The next show we did was, well, of course, the infamous Is He Dead? Now that was Kip's totally fearless moment. He had to go on and put on full drag for that part. We're talking wig, heels, makeup, the full nines. And he laughed and said that his biggest challenge during that part was keeping his fake bosom in check. You know, every night it might be over here a little bit, it might be down here a little bit, you know. So he had to do a little bit of adjusting and wardrobe maintenance. But he had an army of creative people that helped him with that. And most recently, he shaved his head to be Uncle Fester in the Addams Family. And once again, Kip, the consummate professional and fearless nature, he took one look at himself in full makeup, bald head, black suit. He stood there in the backstage and he looked at himself for a minute in the mirror and he goes, my God, I look like a gothic pro wrestler. And then after saying that, he took the actor's beat, the moment, and he turned around and went, yeah, brother! And on a side note, one of my last fondest conversations with Kip was, he called me and he left me a voicemail. And he goes, hey Rue, this is Kip. I just have to tell you that you told me this joke at a party a little while back, and it's killing me. I'm trying to remember the joke. It's something about keeping your pants below your head or finding out where you left them in the middle of the night. And I thought to myself, I never told him that joke. But that one sounds good. I thought about it, and I remembered the joke. And I called him back. We were playing phone tag, and I got his voicemail, and I left a message, and I told him the joke. And again, he called me, missed the call, got his voicemail, and in Kip's smoothest, best actor's voice, he said, "You, sir, are a gentleman and a scholar beyond words. And I admire your perverted sense of humor." And then he did his trademark Kip giggle, like that, and he hung up. But I do think I speak for everyone on this stage, and probably everyone in the audience, by saying we're all a little bit better because we knew Kip. We had him in our lives. He's gone too soon, but he brought light into all of our lives. Paul alluded to that. He made the impossible seem possible. And I can tell you that I'm a better actor pound for pound just for being around Kip and working with him and watching how he did. And I think we all are. Isn't that right, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. Kip, you heard from everybody else, he was always so ready to entertain. He just loved to make people laugh.
A little bit closer.
Even if it meant putting on a dress, I mean, I told him from the beginning when I started with the players, I mean, I don't do tights. Absolutely don't do tights. So after Is He Dead, he was directing one of the short bits in one of the course acting shows, and he wanted me to wear tights. And when he approached me with them, I said, "Kip, I told you I don't do tights." And he goes, "Is he dead? The dress? Give me the tights." And like Willie was saying about all the props, all the creative genius that he had just to come up with things and make something out of nothing. I mean, we absolutely are. We learned so much from him. The Three Tremors, I was honored to be a part of that group. For those of you that were lucky enough to see it, I mean, what fun, how hilarious was that? And, he was always acting. I mean, the world was literally his stage. My wife and I saw him and Molly downtown in his beloved Thunderbird. Molly with her big sunglasses and her scarf. Kip with his cap, driving around. I don't know what role they were playing, but it looked like fun. And speaking of the Thunderbird, he came over to he called me one time and said, "Hey, do you think you could help me? I'm having trouble with my power windows." I said, "Yeah, sure, bring it over." So he brings it over, and we get the door panel off, and we get the window motor out, and we're trying to figure out what's wrong with the darn thing, And when I took the motor off of the gearbox, these little green things fell out in my hand. And we're looking at each other like, what are those? And neither one of us knew what they were, but they kind of resembled, little stones. And so Kip, being who Kip is, creating any character on the, moment's notice, he looks at him and he stops and he looks at me and he says, "Eduardo, we have to get the emeralds across the border." Not wanting to be left out of the fun, I said, "Yes, Miguel, I know, but how?" He says, "I've got it. Put them in the window motor of the '66 Thunderbird. And no one will ever find them." Until, of course, we took it apart and they fell out in our hand. All it was the old gear that was pulverized. But I mean, he could take any situation and make it so much fun. So much fun. And, a thought occurred to me a few days after I heard the news. Whatever your faith is, it's irrelevant, because the best place that your beliefs could possibly imagine, that's where Kip is, and that's where Kip deserves to be. Thank you.
that first day after his passing, someone really wise had written in chalk on what I'm now calling Kip's Corner. They wrote, "We honor Kip when we continue on." And I think that's really going to be true. He loved his hometown. He loved being here. He loved working here. There are 6 generations of his family that are tied to this place on his mother's side, and there's 4 generations that live here now. So I would like to introduce Janelle Brantley Thomas from the Globe Downtown Association, just to tell you a little bit more about how Kip bloomed where he was planted.
Whenever I begin a project, I like to gather all my materials and my to-do lists into a nice, comforting stack before I start organizing or writing. Then I carry the stack around with me everywhere I go, waiting for inspiration or time to work on it. The papers do get dog-eared and mixed up after a few days. Kip always teased me unmercifully about this habit. I learned never leave my stack unattended where he could find it. Because if I did, I would find that my to-do lists would suddenly include bizarre tasks that Kip felt were important, such as repaint the service box at the depot. Or, one of my personal favorites, when doing credit memos, make sure to note the reason your underpants fell off. Or, tell Margaret, my sister, my baby sister, who's so kind she couldn't even squish a fly, tell Margaret that her rotten attitude and foul mouth will not be tolerated. Or something as simple as buy Kip a nice, expensive present. During our last production at the Center for the Arts, he even carried my stack of work files on stage with an audience watching, much to my dismay, and proceeded to use it as a prop. Do you remember the telephone operator, Ernestine, and her files on Jedgar Hoover? That was my file, my stack. I was horrified. Obviously, I'd been carrying this stack for more than a week. This paperwork was pulled from my historic Globe Main Street files starting in 2005 when Kip became director. There are letters, lists, budgets, lease agreements, documentation for projects that Kip was working on, some completed, some ongoing, copies of awards received, grants applied for and awarded, some pending, some complete, committees served on, old to-do lists for the Ghosts of Globe tours, downtown trick-or-treat, Christmas light parade, Santa Comes to Town, Our Christmas Tree, Jailhouse Rock, Main Street Marketplace, Farmers Market, Sentimental Journey, Cemetery Tour, events promoting our historic downtown, most to be used again because they are ongoing. In this, how do I find the words? The words to express our gratitude and respect. The words to describe Kip, what he meant to his friends, his community, and our historic downtown Main Street program. This is just too much information. It seemed impossible to glean the words from this inadequate stack of papers. For me, Kip's magic was apparent in the vitality he brought to our downtown. It was obvious to all of us feeling the positive changes, the gradual revitalization of our downtown, the shaping of the downtown into a cohesive unit from the gateway to Besh, a divided town becoming a united town. One of his favorite projects was the historic 1916 train depot complex designed by Trost and Trost, the single-story brick freight office and the two-story brick passenger station. First, he led the renovation of the freight office by community volunteer effort. That, by the way, was a 2006 Main Street Award winner and recipient of the Governor's Honor Award for Historic Preservation. At that time, the passenger station was in use as a laundromat car wash. In 2007, after a whole year of negotiations, Kip and 17 excited volunteers uncovered the original lobby floor plan from under lime green paneling, drop ceilings, dryer build-outs, and an enormous labyrinth of plumbing that was purposeful for the laundromat. More volunteers stepped forward. The appeal of the completed passenger station helped bring the Copper Spike train excursion in December 2008. Kip loved the train. He loved his volunteers, and his volunteers loved him. In 2009, his friends and colleagues contributed to an article honoring him in the Arizona Silver Belt newspaper. From that article, I want to summarize one of the quotations written by Kip's dear Molly. Thank you, Kip, for returning to the community wherein you were raised and giving back tirelessly for your community. This area would be a sore loss without your passion. What would Globe be like without Kip is really more the question. What would the greater Globe area, the train depot, the Copper Spike Railroad, Main Street, and the Downtown Association, the Cobre Valley Center for the Arts and the art community, live theater, and the music community, downtown restoration and preservation, the historic sheriff's office and jail, mob projects, Globe Clean and Beautiful, Community Concert Association, Hollis Theater Project, Centennial Halls, Historic Home Tour, downtown businesses, annual Halloween events, Pictures with Santa and the Elves event, Christmas Light Parade, annual New Year's events, Valentine events, the Easter Parade, the County Fair, tree planting, flower gardening and watering, building painting, several on his own dime because he wanted to just add morale to our community. Graffiti removal, countless media relations, speeches upon speeches about the value of our community to those who are not as fortunate to live here. Daily tourist relations, big businesses and mine relations, community morale, award after award for our community, and so much more. What would Globe be without Kip? Therein lies the real question. Well, I believe that Kip had magic that he spread to all of us. And it's up to us to make that magic grow. Thank you.
Oh, here's a nice news flash. The depot's going to be open tomorrow from 12 to 3 for anyone who would like to come in and visit. That's going to be nice. The depot that was a laundromat that was kind of needed some help. That's wonderful. I'm so glad. In your program, there's a little piece called My Symphony. There's no way I'm going to get through this. But I will tell you that Kip's sister Leora found this tattered in an antique store, and Kip restored it and framed it and had it hanging in his bedroom probably for like the last, 22, 25 years. I'd ask that you read it and maybe try to apply a little bit of it. It's certainly the way he lived his life. He gave it to us, and we want to share it with you. And I would also ask if you get a chance in the next day or week or month or coming years, if you have a story about Kip that you would like to share, that you would write that down. There's going to be a place in the Cobre Valley Center for the Arts where they'll be collected and put into a binder. And I think that's going to be really healing for all of us. It's a way to remember him. I got one more story. When Kip was born, and I've tried to put a date on it, and I think the oldest he could have been was maybe a year and a half. Hollywood came to Globe in a big, big film called The Great White Hope. I don't know if any of you here remember it, but it was James Earl Jones and Jane Alexander. They had done the play on Broadway, and they had each won a Tony. And they needed places that looked like the time period, which was between 1910 and 1915. And surprise, surprise, Globe's Broad Street looked just like that because it had remained untouched. So they came in. My Uncle Tom was part of the group that brought in over 2 feet of dirt, and they completely covered Broad Street. They built wooden sidewalks, and they restored each storefront to look like the time period. I remember specifically going past Lucille's and seeing it all built out, and they had mannequins with almost Victorian era clothing on it, and they spared no expense. It was a big deal project. James Earl Jones and Jane Alexander were actually nominated for Academy Awards. They didn't win, but it was a big Hollywood movie. Hollywood came to Broad Street, and Kip, it was released in October of 1970, so he had to be about a year and a half old. And his two sisters were walking him down the way. It was a film that dealt with racial issues at a time when racial issues were pretty poignant. And The Great White Hope was supposedly a white boxer that could beat the heavyweight championship, who happened to be a black man at the time. So they had pennants up across Broad Street, back and forth, flags, and where the depot is, they had built a boxing ring with like a coliseum around it, and it was lined with these pennant flags all around. And here's little Kip. He was short, but about here, about that tall. And I remember Leora and Shauna holding his hands, and the wind was blowing, and the pennant flags were flapping, like, sounded like that. And he stopped and he said, "Listen." And there's those flags going. And he says, "They're clapping." And then he did this. Thank you. Thank you. I was there. I know. It was very profound and very prophetic. He was a little star, and we loved it. And he came back and he became a big star there on Broad Street. And I think it's a completely fitting look at him that we give him one last big round of applause. Yep. Yep. Bravo. Bravo. The only way to end it would be the way Kip would want it ended. There's going to be the reception afterwards, and we would love to see you there. But for now, I will leave you with this lovely reminder of Kip. He called it the typist.